The long hip bicep ripped, and I tried to have it fixed once, and it tore again. And so my long hip bicep is rolled up like a rubber band up here. So I have a knot up here, and but all on my right side. So the first the next bionic thing I have will have my bionic left knee at Christmas, and I have a bionic left shoulder as well. But I hadn't realized until she showed me a picture, a schematic of what I look like. And contrary to what people think, I don't have a bionic heart because I have a regular heart. But some people say I don't have that. Okay, is everybody here? Yeah, except for Eduardo, who's on a plane. Well, going around to the 4 groups, I've forgotten how much fun it was to go to the 4 groups and see how you analyze deals from the last hardcore. But I now realize why some kids get A's in school and some kids get C's. It's obvious. It's intuitively obvious to me because none of the groups looked at them. Even though I gave the same explanation to everybody. It's like a witness. A guy comes in here and shoots Theodore, and he runs out. We ask all the witnesses, what did he look like? What color was he? How tall was he? And we probably have 10 different responses. And so we had, you approach the cases differently. And some of you approached them in more in depth, and some of you, didn't. But that's it just reinforces or validates, not that I need any fucking validation, is that all you guys are different, and that's why it takes some 99 days to do the first deal, finance it. Not you, Greg. Okay? With no pivots, and some a lot longer. I don't want to say how long because I don't want the guys on the YouTube to get nervous and panic, freak out on me. And that's just it. Arguably, the guys that have the youngest, no responsibilities, less baggage, because everybody's got baggage, nobody has no baggage. I seem to get it done a lot quicker. And as I said at the beginning, it's like learning how to jump horses in Latin. If you don't learn it when you're a kid, it's hard to get the hang of it the older you get. It doesn't make it impossible. And we don't have any real young kids in this group. No teenagers or in their in their early 20s. So you're all more or less mature adults. I emphasize in theory. In theory, not necessarily in practice. Okay, so what we're going to do now is each group is going to present one of their cases, and we'll only start with one for the benefit of the YouTube guys, and then but I don't want us to present anything that's proprietary, anything that's your deal, because even though we'd like to trust YouTube, I know better. So they'd be Googling and trying to intercept your deal and perhaps take it from you. Now, when you're up, whoever's up first, and you're presenting, did you bring your sheets from your boards from that you were writing on?
Yeah.
Oh, you got them on the laptops?
No, don't. That's right.
Oh, okay. I will point out things, and as you, the audience, see things, we want you to point out things. What about that? Or I didn't think of that because 2 or 3 of you are in similar areas. For example, I call them bedpans, elder homes for the elderly. We'll go through them as long as it takes. We're not going to finish all the cases before we break today. And we'll start again in the morning. You may have some changes, some ideas that you come up with based on the questioning from the different guys and one gal around the table. Any questions or any comments so far on the process in general? What is the takeaway? Before we go through the numbers, what is the takeaway on what you went through as a group?
Investigate before you invest.
Yeah. Different perspectives add more insight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Into one's knowledge of.
And as Costa Gracios, God rest his soul, said, the more you investigate, Mr. Peña, the less you will have to invest. The less. I didn't understand that at the time. I thought he was just an old cranky old man, but he was right. He was right, and that's where your dream team comes to bear, and that will preclude you from making certain investment decisions based on their experience. It's that simple. And where you thought that you perhaps had enough information to make an investment decision, where it comes out more blatantly is when the investment banks, the commercial banks, or whoever you're dealing with tell you they can't finance it because of A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, because it's questions that you didn't ask. Now, your board should make those kind of mistakes. Now, I make some mistakes, not about investment criterion, but not too often, because I normally drill down beyond the whether we need new paint on the building or we've got to readjust the floor plan and do a time and motion study because we want to utilize the employees at the highest performance level. But your dream team should, if you pick them right, be making those decisions. And for those of you that I'm on your board as chairman, I always say, what are the other board members? First of all, what do the lawyers and accountants say? And then what do the lawyers, or what's our other board members say? I do that for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that I want to see if the lawyers and accountants are worth a shit, one, and if my fellow board members are worth a shit. And 90% of the time, my fellow board members come up with good questions, and then only very seldom do I come up with other things. And I think that Greg could write a white paper on some of the things I've come up on our deal. But now some of you, not all of you, but some of you, the reason why you don't ask your lawyers and accountants, and it will also be the kids on the YouTube, is because you don't want the accountants and the lawyers, these are the guys that aren't on your board, to know how fucking stupid you are. You're embarrassed. I know it's tough to embarrass a South African, but if it's even possible to embarrass a South African. But you're embarrassed, okay. And you're even more embarrassed to ask your fellow directors because, we can always get a new accounting firm or a new law firm, but God, my industry expert, if he thinks I'm a dipshit, or my CFO or whatever, so you're embarrassed. So who do you ask? When I'm on the deal, you ask me because you think I have unconditional love for you, which is wrong. I don't have unconditional anything for you. So just so you understand that straight away. And so I may slap you around a little, then send you back what are the other directors. And then after you get the input back from the other directors, then I see if they missed anything. They'll get, and you can get these deals done if they get only 75 or 80% of the stuff right. And I've never done a deal or seen a deal or heard of a deal that everybody thought of everything. When you think of everything is when the motherfucker's closed and you're trying to operate it. Like I was telling you, I thought 200 miles was 2 hours and there was a hub and spoke. And you can't get 200 miles in 2 fucking hours. So there was no way we could manage all the fucking sites unless we're in a fucking helicopter, which we didn't have enough money to use. So my whole management system that I thumped up was wrong. Okay? So I've made those mistakes. So when you'll find out the things that you missed as after you're trying to operate them. And that's invariably what happens. So the most sophisticated acquisition team, the most sophisticated M&A team, if they've done 100 deals, will not get everything. What you want is to get the salient points, the major things, the major arteries, so you don't bleed to death once you've made the acquisition. And if you try to factor in Brexit, Donald Trump becoming president, Merkel leaving and stopping letting all the fucking Syrians in, if you try to factor all those things in, you'll never do a deal. You'll never pull the trigger. And doing deals, it's better to have loved and lost than never loved at all. It's better to have done some deals that maybe aren't that great than never have done any deals at all. Because remember, net worth is built on not one transaction, Vincent. It's on a series of transactions. And that's why one of the biggest hurdles you're going to have, some of you have already experienced it, is that the guys that are selling want to get rich off one fucking deal. Because they haven't taken any money out of the thing for 20, 30, 40 years. So they're trying to get rich and retire off one deal. And that invariably means that cash flow will not cover debt service, even with a bridge financing or a mezz piece or whatever, and you have to turn to private equity. Now, as you guys grow, you will ultimately, all of you that succeed, will use private equity at one point in your careers. Because you can't do the billions without it. So, but I'm trying to push that off as far as I can so you have as much equity built up in the deal beforehand. So instead of having 50,000 equity, you got 50 million equity. So when the private equity guys come and squeeze you, you got skin in the game. Fuck you, I got 50 million bucks in this goddamn thing. I didn't just fall off the fucking turnip truck. And that's why I'm pushing you that way. And as we've already discussed, certain areas of the world, certain ethnic cultures have different ways of dealing with joint venture partners, etc. And that will depend on what part of the world you're in. Okay. Vincent, who's Dom? What deal are you going to go with first?
The leading residential
The one.
aged care.
Okay. Be my guest. Now, just your name and what part of the world you're from and what industry you're interested in. That's all you got to say. Your first name. You don't have to say your last name because we don't want these people running you down like a dog.
I'm down from Switzerland, and I'm in the real estate business,
Formerly in the
banking industry.
wealth banking.
And right now we are looking at the Clean William healthcare deal. We separated it to the introduction. I will do the introduction, Vince will do the red flags, and the other two will do the deal options and conclusion.
This is already like a Swiss deal. Structured. I mean,
that's the free cash flow model. It's about
you can move the easel.
doesn't work. It's about the leading residential aged care service provider in southeast of Queensland, and we have the EBIT. We have the numbers of the depreciation and amortization. We guessed the change in working capital with 10% and the capital expenditure CapEx with 5%, and that gave us a total of 1.7 million free cash flow. But there are some red flags, and Vincent will tell us about the red flags.
Name, background, what part of the world you're from?
My name is Vincent, from the United States. Background is in healthcare, now beverages, food and beverages. So
That's a classy way of saying it, but go ahead.
we identified about 9 red flags. One is that the company that's selling these particular assets, there's 4 that they own. They're only selling 3. So based off of the income statement that we did have, it looks like the best of all 4 they're holding themselves. So I was wondering why they're holding the other one. So that's one. Number 2, they are going to build a structure very close to all these 3 assets that they're selling shortly after they sell them. So it's basically going to be a competitor. So there has to be some non-compete clause of some sort in there in order to prevent all the people that we would currently have in the residency leaving for a nicer place. None of these residents have 100% occupancy. They have very strict policies on letting people in. My guess is it has to do with payment, although they didn't say that. So one of the things they said that we could do is loosen the policies in order to have more people in. Well, it's obvious that they had those policies in place for a particular reason. They just didn't want to have people probably coming in without paying or having an ability to pay. There's a rent expense to a subsidiary of the company they're selling. So the base we could tell is that there's an umbrella company of which there's 2 subsidiaries. The one subsidiary that they're pitching or they're selling has the 3 assets in it. What these assets do is they pay the other subsidiary realty or renting fee. So that doesn't, I don't believe that shows up on their books, so it doesn't show as an expense. So what they would do is they'd sell those 3 assets and we would then be paying their other subsidiary rent or lease of their building. So that's a red flag. For us, it's not very good. Okay, revenue. Revenue is going up, which is good. However, EBITDA is going down. So why is that? It's due to employee costs. So employee costs have increased by 7% over the past 2 years, which has resulted in EBITDA dropping anywhere between 7 and 12% between those 3 assets over the past 2 or 3 years. So we would be inheriting potentially decrease in EBITDA, although increase in revenue. Income statement and cash flow statement were not made available. We didn't even, as Don mentioned, we had a guesstimate on what the net income was, and so we don't have any idea of what their total assets are or their total liabilities, which we would want to know before purchasing, and obviously the cash flow and balance sheet would help with that. There are 19 residents already prepaid for the year coming up. So my guess is they already have paid that and they show that on the income, of which we would not be able to inherit that on the purchase. Of the 2 occupancies, of the 3 assets they're providing, the occupancy has dropped in 2 of the assets and has increased in 1. And that's a trend that's happened over the past 3 years. So again, it looks like they have 1 darling out of the one that they're selling us and 2 dogs. Those are the main things. Oh, the other thing that we'd have to be concerned about is that of all their revenue income, 60% of it is government. So if the government decided to change their policy, either keep it flat or not go with inflation, our revenue would either stay flat or potentially decrease. And based off of the projections that the population is getting older, my guess is the government will probably not keep pace with inflation because the burden of doing that. So our revenue, our margins will continue to go shrink as time went on. Those are the ones that we identified.
Okay.
Richard, background in IT. I'm currently looking at energy, and I'll talk about our options. There's so many, there were too many red flags. We started to have options to deal with it with each of these red flags. One of them was given to us by our industry expert. and it would have been to put a portion of the purchase price in escrow related to the uncertainty of the government decision relating to the laws and their support of
Or the lack thereof.
a lack of their, yes, thank you. In the end, I think that the only deal option would be to either refuse it or to propose possibly, and it's maybe it's an opinion that's not even unanimous in our team yet, is to offer a complete purchase of everything. So the way the deal is structured, we look at it as if they're trying to sell off the less interesting part of their deal, of their company, and we'd be stuck with almost the possibility of having them compete us with a newer building right beside us. So the possibility, the idea would be, and it's a question basically, could we entertain the idea to make them part of the bigger picture and ask them if they're willing to sell us everything? That's not only like there's 3 buildings, there's 4 building totals. So we're saying we're purchasing the 4 buildings and the holding that received the lease, and that's where we are.
Okay. Now, it's not unusual for a seller to want to sell off the pigs.
Just have a conclusion.
Okay, well, no, I wanted to say something. Come on up. No, I just wanted to make the comment. It's not unusual for somebody to want to sell off the pigs and keep the best. I wanted to make sure. Okay, go ahead, Theo.
Theodore from Bulgaria, window and carpeting industry. In conclusion, our group just decided not to take a deal and to reject the deal based on the so many red flags and also lack of information provided. Thank you.
Okay. Now, in conjunction with what their conclusion was, there's a reason why you don't get all the information, as I was just trying to explain to Vincent when I was with his group earlier today. Because they want to suck you into the vortex. They want to get you interested. They want you to get you part of the process. So you're talking to your directors, you're talking to your financial people, etc. Because then subconsciously you're embarrassed to have to go back to them and say that you fucked up. You won't use those words, but I led you down this primrose path mistakenly. So quite often, as Vincent brought up in one of his deals, is that they just send him some spreadsheet that has this partial information. Now, for those of you, and I'm going to say it, and I'm sure I'm going to say it many, many times during this experience, hardcore experience, dealing with brokers, which are one level above used car salesmen, only barely one level, have their own best interests at heart, not yours. And quite often, though they're supposed to represent the seller, they're representing themselves first, the seller second, and maybe you through serendipity. And the whole idea is an investment in smaller investment banks are the exact same. If they're not sending you material in a bound, and now they don't use bound because it's all electronic. If you can't get a document like this that says fucking Goldman Sachs on it or whoever, something ain't right. Or it says the investment bank of United Bank of Switzerland or Bank of whoever the fuck it says. You want all the information because you can't be expected to make a decision based on something less than full disclosure. in my experience, if they start out not giving you full disclosure, it's never going to get any better. And when Greg gets up, he'll tell you about his experience with one of the big four accounting firms that they were clearly not representing his group when they should have been, and they were fishing. Everybody understand fishing? They were out there telling a seller we might have a buyer. They were fishing. Okay. And that's part of the game, unfortunately, the acquisition game. And that's why you have to have a lot of irons in the fire. That's why you have to be talking to a lot of financial institutions. That's why you need your accountants and your lawyers and your board members, your dream team, supplying you with data, reference, or vis-a-vis acquisition candidates. And that's why you need to be talking to a lot of acquisition candidates, because many of them won't come to fruition. In fact, most of them won't come to fruition, no matter how discerning you are. It just won't happen. And the people that are back there on the Hall of Fame, for the most part, that got up there because of their M&A experience and their deal doing, understand that. The hard way, unfortunately, even though I was guiding them. So what is your takeaway, comments about what has been presented to you so far? Anybody have any questions on what was presented? Everybody understand what was presented?
Why didn't you go
Go ahead.
with the options that you presented? The options of dealing with the red flags? And just decide to straight out reject it?
You obviously didn't have all the information.
Yeah.
So
Why not
reject it if you haven't got all the information? What I mean is, wouldn't you then go back and say, could I get more information on it first before I make a decent decision?
No, but some of the red flags we had enough information.
Really, but I mean,
And we couldn't deal with it.
the facilities have been offered at Queensland, Australia, right?
Correct.
So they work on RADs and DAPs, they work on refundable bonds, I know that. There's a whole bunch of turmoil in Australia at the moment where one of the listed companies called Estia Health was basically shorted by its private equity fund a few months ago. They won handsomely on that. But none of these facilities you've mentioned, that they don't have any collateral. There's no property, there's no business, there's no building except the business, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I can understand from that perspective you wouldn't roll up just an operating company. You'd want some collateral, or you're probably not going to get any funding. I mean, from that perspective, I agree with you that I'd turn it down if you're not going to get the property as well.
Okay.
But did you get enough information, though, to really make that decision, I guess is what I mean.
Well, I'll answer part of that, and I was in part of the discussions. If they're keeping the princess and they're selling off the hogs, some of which are right next to each other, and they're going to build another one down the road, I mean, that would have been a red flag for me. I wouldn't have to gone through all the esoteric bullshit they did. But I'm doing this a million years, 10,000 times, you know. But I wanted him to go through the esoteric stuff because, you should. Now, somebody on your board may be able to make that decision. Well, fuck, if they're going to build, and you can only assume, an assumption makes us ass out of you and me, but you can only assume that the facility they're going to build is going to be better than the ones they have, more high tech, and they're going to drain all your fucking business away anyway. And on top of that, if they want to keep the best one, so they're going to build a new one better, and they're going to keep the best one, they're going to leave you with caca, dog shit. So I understand why you want more information, but they had enough information to say adios, motherfucker. Yeah, Richard.
What do you think of the option to tell them we want to buy you?
That's always an option. When I would get in a scrape, I'd say, okay, we're obviously not agreeing on any of this. What do you want for everything? Holding company, your unborn daughter, your virgin sister, everybody. Kit and caboodle. And you'd be surprised how many times they said, they'll go huddle in the next room, they come back with a number. And of course then I gotta put up or fucking shut up, right? Okay, and then so my dream team are saying, Dan, We'll figure it out. Okay, and so then we just we bought everything. Everything. That's an approach.
You look at it that they're trying to keep all of the upside on their side and get us
Of course.
COP stuff, but it's good news if you see that, oh well,
It's like when you're playing sandlot cricket or sandlot football or sandlot baseball. You want the best players on your team. Or rugby or whatever, right? And you want the other dipshits to have the worst players. So you want to increase the probability of winning. So then, in that way, they've already, in my judgment, they already mismanaged all this other shit. See, if I were the lender, the primary lender, whoever they might be, building this new facility, I'd say, that sounds good. But I mean, the last time we made this loan, if I was part of the credit, I mean, you fucked up 3 out of 4. One was okay, and now you want me to find another one, a bigger one? And I won't do that. So what they want to do, if they want to probably separate in some time frame so they can lose ownership. They want to get rid of the bastard child. But you had enough information, but it would have been nicer if, but there's no perfect world. Remember, information isn't perfect. On that happy note, YouTube, good night, thank you, we'll see you in the morning.